There I was, unmolested, sitting on my favorite stool at my favorite bar, drinking a delicious amber adult beverage, watching the screen above the bar where my favorite team was playing, when my ugly past walked through the door, all 5'6" of her, and 120 pounds. Without looking up, I said, "Hi, Melinda." She said, "Hi, Robbie, how long has it been?" and touched my shoulder. I knew that touch too well. It made men's hearts melt. I said, 4 years, 7 months, 1 week, 3 days, 7 hours, and about a few minutes. But the point is, it's not long enough, Melinda. Turning and looking at her, I added, "You are as beautiful as I remember you, but I also remember that this is only external beauty. What can I do for you?" "Robbie, I want my husband back." I looked her up and down and just shook my head. "What makes you think he wants you back?" Yes, wives slapped their husbands when she was in the crowd. These guys knew this was the closest thing to a woman they would see that night. She had such an influence on us. I was no exception. I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. We thought this was the love that would end all other loves. I truly loved her with all my heart and soul, but she had too much love for one man. In the last year of our marriage, she realized that this love was a burden, and she needed to share it with others. Believe me, gentlemen, there is something about being married to a simple girl next door. Beautiful, but not dazzling, if you know what I mean. It gets boring watching men become speechless and idiots when a woman like Melinda walks into the room. All the blood drains from the brain, and suddenly they become Fabio, Johnny, Wad Holmes, and Brad Pitt in one body. But in reality, when she wears panties, she puts them on one leg at a time, just like any other woman. Why she agreed to marry me when I asked remains an insoluble mystery to me. So my question is, what should a guy do to keep his beautiful wife faithful and monogamous? You have given her all the material things she needs or wants. Your Visa and MasterCard cards are maxed out. She drives a Porsche SUV. Jewelry? Of course, why not? She proudly wears the 3-carat engagement ring you bought her. A necklace, solid gold ankle bracelet, and diamond toe rings glisten in the sun on her $200 fingers and toes, made for a manicure while she buys new things. I don't know the answer to my question. I think you have to trust that she loves you as much as you love her. Treat her with respect and hope she will do the same to you. I must have failed somewhere in getting her a lover, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Enough history. Melinda asked her companion to find a table since she would be there soon. She took a stool and sat next to me. I looked at him. He was tall, dark-haired, and of average height. He's probably around 50. Melinda is 36 years old. I said, "Melinda, I'm sure the bartender will soon have a paying customer who needs this stool. Don't get comfortable." She said, "You mean you're not going to buy the love of your life a drink for old time's sake?" I said, "No." She actually had the nerve to pout when her nylon-clad toes touched my leg and began the familiar movement up and down my leg. I said, "Really? Melinda, by the way, you're now trolling nursing homes for dates." She said, "Robbie, you liked my toes when I did that. Stop it. He's a good guy. Just a friend from work." I said, "Melinda, I still like it. I'm just not crazy about who those fingers are attached to. It's not their fault that they are attracted to you. I mean, if those gorgeous toes were attached to the foot of a bearded circus performer, a hungry, skinny wife of a Somali pirate, or I might even think about Hillary Clinton on one of my really bad days, maybe I'd like it. But you kind of killed this little special seduction for me and you." Melinda said, "So bad, huh? Do you hate me that much? It was just one time, Robbie. I regret it to this day. I'm really sorry. It should never have gotten to this point. I was a weak woman who lost the best thing that ever happened to her because of an hour of lust." I said, "Melinda, I don't hate you. I hate what you did. I hate that you almost killed a man who loved the dirt between your toes. You ruined what I thought was a damn good marriage." "For what?" "Melinda, he stilled you. For God's sake. That time you said you deviated, you allowed another man to take over your body and became pregnant with his child. How fucked up is it that this was my privilege and mine alone? I'm sorry you lost your baby. I don't think it should have happened at that time. I noticed that the bartender was looking at me intently and calmed down. Melinda cried quietly. I hated seeing her cry. This was a weak point for her, and she knew it. I still loved that cheating bitch. I took her hand and led her to a booth in the back. She said, "Robbie, I came off the pills because we were trying to start a family. He used a condom, but it broke. I was in my safe time, but it wasn't. 5 weeks later, I woke up sick. I knew I lost you. I was pregnant with Jack's baby. I've never seen anyone so heartbroken as when I told you this. I did it and got the result. I'm so damn sorry, Robbie. I know you think differently, but I never stopped loving you. I lost myself for a few days and let the smooth talk flow into my head and my body. When I told him I was pregnant, he just laughed it off and told me to get rid of it. I hit him as hard as I could, and he knocked me down. I tried to get up, and he hit me again. I ran out after that as he hit me in the stomach. I haven't seen him since. I knew you too well. The disrespect I showed you was too much. You would never accept me or another man's child into your life, so I filed for divorce to save you from having to do that. I didn't ask for anything. You have been my hero from the moment we met, and I have failed you as a wife, lover, and best friend. You will never be able to trust me again. Besides my adultery, I allowed material things to control who I was and thought I was. I was the wonderful Melinda Hammer. You were right. Beauty was only on the outside. Inside, I was smug, selfish, heartless. A bitch who never deserved a man like you. When I miscarried, it also damaged my uterus, Robbie. I can't have any more children. I think God is punishing me. I looked at her sad blue eyes and realized that she was pouring out her heart to me, something she couldn't do until now. I noticed her boyfriend left when we moved into the booth. She put her head on my shoulder and cried. Okay, I know. What an asshole I can be, right? This was my woman, once upon a time, and she asks for forgiveness in her own way. We just sat there and didn't say anything for what seemed like hours while I held her in my arms. I raised her head and kissed her. She looked at me with a surprised look. She said, "Robbie, tell me how to make you love me again and bring you back into my life. I want you to know something else. After you left me, I swore that no man other than you would ever touch me sexually again. I kept my promise to myself. I regret to admit that Jack was the last man who was with me many years ago. I wish you could fix this someday." I don't know, Melinda. You've given me a lot to think about. You hurt me. I'm not the Robbie you stabbed in the back 5 years ago. I'm more careful with relationships. I will no longer give in to meaningless words and tears as easily as I did. You say you want us to get back together. At this moment, I just hear words that don't make sense. How can I trust you again? Because at this moment, I have zero confidence that you will be faithful. I understand, Robbie. When I walked in and saw you sitting here, I thought I should try to see if you had anything left for me. Even after 5 years, I still love you as much as the first day we met. I know I abandoned us, but I will never do it again. I want you to come back. I can see that you're not ready to think about me right now, so I'll take care of myself, okay? I said, "You too, Melinda." She left her business card on the counter, slid off her chair, and walked out of the bar with the graceful gait I knew so well. I sat and thought about everything she said. I paid the bill and drove home. The more I thought about our conversation, the more I understood my feelings for her. I didn't admit it, but she didn't know how wrong she was. Not a day went by that we didn't think about her and the wonderful life we had lived together. The love and life we shared in and out of the bedroom was like a fairy tale for me. And then I realized I still love her as much as the day we met. It was as if my pain had been replaced by a new feeling. The feeling and all the emotions that accompany forgiveness. All the heavy emotions that I had been carrying for almost 5 years were lifted off my shoulders. I was free to love this imperfect woman again and free to choose whether to let her into my heart again or not. Free to create a new life with an old, new love if I want. The door was open. Should I take a chance with her or continue to live the way I lived before? One woman after another who couldn't compare to Melinda. I argued with myself for several days and dialed the number on her card. The voice I had adored for almost 5 years said, "Good morning. This is Miss Hammer. How can I help?" I said, "Melinda, I was thinking about everything you said the other day. When you have time, I want to talk to you about us and the future we may or may not have. First of all, I have to say that our old marriage and relationship is dead and buried. From now on, if you want, I'd like to take you out on a date and gently find out where we are and what our expectations are for any relationship we might have in the future. We will start a new healthy relationship based on an old love that has been lost for a while. You are hungry?" She was silent. Then she said, "Oh God, Robbie, this is more than I could have dreamed of. Yes, oh yes, I'm starving." I picked Melinda up at her house and took her to the chop house. All the way she held my hand so tightly that my hand even began to go numb from lack of blood circulation. Her eyes were full of tears, hopefully tears of joy. She asked, "Robbie, do you mind if I clean myself up?" I replied, "Of course." We arrived at the restaurant and I parked. She seemed to have regained her spirit and stopped crying. She opened the huge bag that all women seem to carry these days for their things. She pulled out a pair of sexy little black ballet shoes. Turning to me, she threw her legs over my lap. She said, "Robbie, could you unfasten your ankle straps?" and handed me ballet shoes. "These are much more comfortable than these heels. Can you do this for me while I touch up my makeup?" I took her shoes off her beautiful little feet. She arched her foot and pointed her left toes right in front of my face. She said, "Do you remember those rings on your fingers? You gave them to me for my birthday. I wear them regularly to remind myself of the person I stupidly lost." I held her foot in my hand and stroked it from heel to toes, feeling the rings on her toes through the nylon. She closed her eyes and smiled as my hand slid down her leg. I put the ballet shoe on her left foot. I repeated this with my right leg. Naturally, she achieved the desired effect when she lowered her feet directly onto the erection she had created. She grinned, knowing she had achieved her goal, and touched up her lipstick. I looked at her as we entered the restaurant. Her natural walk and stride would make a dead man get out of her way. We were seated and served drinks. I just enjoyed her beauty. "Robbie, if I can start this conversation, it's a dream come true for me. I feel freed from the pain I have caused myself since we broke up. You were an amazing husband who I took for granted our entire marriage because I was shallow, immature, and caught up in my own little world. I've grown up, honey. I don't know what you have planned for us, and I don't care as long as I can be with you and love you like I should have the first time." After my divorce, I looked in the mirror one day and asked, "Who are you?" In the mirror, I saw a 32-year-old narcissistic adulteress, a divorcee, whose belly was growing with the child of a man who could not compare with her husband in anything. What a shame. I was the daughter some mothers wish they had never had. For a while after that, even though I knew I was prettier than average, I really thought the best part of me had flowed down my mom's leg. I was a terrible person, not to mention a terrible wife. I spent a week in hospital after a miscarriage and hysterectomy. I was lost. One of the nurses talked to me a lot, and I finally told her my sad story. She gave me the business card of the GP, Dr. Anna White, and told me I needed to make an appointment. I did this and still see her, although not as often as before, but when I feel bad, her advice helps. At the time, she tried, unsuccessfully, to get me to give up my isolation, find someone, and get my life back. I told her I found someone and lost him. I didn't want anyone else. She said such devotion might be considered unreasonable given the circumstances. I told her I know you're still single, and I'm going to do everything I can to show you that the old Melinda is a thing of the past. I knew coming back into your life would be a challenge. She advised me to clean myself up first before starting any campaign to win you back. She wanted to know what would happen if all my efforts to get back into your life failed, and you told me to get out. I told her that if I learned nothing else from our meetings, I learned that I would be okay. If I find another love in my life, it will be a different love. So it took me over 4 years to get my thoughts in order and get rid of the old Melinda Hammer. This bitch tried to come back a couple more times, but I focused on my goals and defeated her. The new Melinda Hammer, and yes, Robbie, I am proud to still carry the name Hammer, although I wish it was Mrs. Resurface Hammer, is still in the making. When I walked into the bar with Jim this afternoon and, to my surprise, saw you sitting there alone, I thought this might be my only chance to try to get your forgiveness, if nothing else. When I heard the bitterness in your voice, I knew I had a difficult fight ahead of me. Robbie, thanks for listening. I'm not so naive as to think that everything is forgotten and in order. I know not. I haven't forgotten, and I know you will never forget. My wish and hope is that this Melinda may be the one you want to get to know better. I said, wow, Melinda, that's a lot of information. What do you say we start slow and make sure it's what we both want? We have been separated for almost 5 years. A lot has happened in our lives. You say you haven't had any lovers since our divorce. I can't say the same. I had mistresses, and quite a few. The sad part is that I always compared them to you. None of them could compare to Melinda Hammer. To use a cliché, it was just sex. That's all. Several of them wanted to apply to be the next Mrs. Hammer, but I couldn't give it to them. You spoiled me with every other woman. The bar was set so high that they had no chance. I think we should eat, drink, and celebrate tonight as a breath of fresh air for an old flame. Then we'll go home and think about where we want to go next. I'm not sure it will be as easy as you think, Melinda. Melinda continued, I will do whatever you think is best for you, Robbie. I hurt you and broke your heart. I can't begin to describe how sorry I am for this. At the same time, I am still in love with you and want to be in your life in some form. If you decide that we can just be friends, then that's more than I hoped for when I saw you the other day. I won't lie, I want more. Much more. I want to be the woman I was meant to be and the woman you want to see. We talked, had dinner, and after a while there was silence. I looked into her gorgeous eyes when a bare, nylon-covered foot appeared in my lap. She knew it always turned me on, and that hasn't changed. I gently massaged her foot and toes under the tablecloth. I said, time to go, honey. I have work tomorrow. I paid the bill while she put the shoe back on. We walked out holding hands. As we drove back to the bar to pick up her car, I asked what happened to the Porsche, since she was now driving a Toyota Camry that was a year or two older. She said, I couldn't afford the payments after we split up. It also reminded me of places and times I would rather forget. I opened the truck door and helped her out, walking her to her car. She said, always a gentleman, Robbie Hammer. That's what I've always loved about you. Thanks for this time with you, Robbie. I leaned over and kissed her. She kissed me passionately, our tongues dancing together. We parted, left alone with our thoughts and possibilities for the future. As I drove home, I thought about how much I enjoyed the evening once I let go of the pain and bitterness. She was still mine. All I had to do was say the words, and she would be in my bed that night. But I am a reasonable, logical person. I want her to know that I'm not as gullible as I used to be. We are different people now. I can resist her charms. Damn, who am I kidding? I can't resist anything about her. One thing is clear. I still love her, and I think she still loves me. But I need to know. What made her go to bed with another man? I can't and don't want to go through this again. So many things to think about. As she drove to her apartment, Melinda's thoughts were all over the place. The taste of his lips was still lingering on hers. I haven't heard from Robbie in over a week. I started to think he was changing his mind about starting over. I work as a paralegal at a large law firm. I was reviewing one of the cases for one of the partners when my phone rang. I took it out of my bag. It was him. I said, "Good morning, this is Miss Hammer. How can I help you?" I answered in my most seductive voice. He said, "Funny, we seem to have the same last name, madam." "How did this happen, lady?" I said, Well, sir, one day, in a land far, far away, I married an amazing guy who gave me his name to cherish for the rest of my life. My heart flutters every time I say it. Robbie said, "Well, lady, you must really appreciate this guy." I said, "Yes, sir, he is one of a kind in my heart and in my life." Our little exchange continued, and he said, "Young lady, how about I stop by and invite you to lunch and maybe get a little naughty?" I said, "Why, sir, I won't be able to get ready and be at your service in less than 3 minutes." Robbie said, "Well then, madam, meet me at the entrance with your panties in hand so we can sort out this last name issue." I said, "Which panties do you mean, sir? I think I forgot them this morning." All I heard was, "Oh shit," and a beep. I told our secretary that I would be gone for the rest of the day. Janice, our secretary, laughed so hard I thought she would pass out and said, "I'm sure she will, Miss Hammer. Please, be careful." We both started laughing. "Melinda, I'm happy for you. All good things come in their own time." Robbie waited in the foyer and heard her high heels clicking on the tile floor. When she approached, she simply melted in his arms, and they kissed, passionately kissing in front of God and who knows who else. She whispered in her ear, "Robbie, I'm so horny." I drove to a secluded spot in the parking lot, turned off the engine, and took her into my arms. She looked at me with that look of desire that I knew so well. I reached under her jacket and found my prey. It was a good thing we were close to her apartment because I wanted her. When we got to her apartment, we made love. I held her in my arms as we dozed off together again. We fell asleep. I woke up with her leaning on her elbow. She gently stroked my face with her fingertips. Her toes lightly touched my feet. A tear fell on my chest. She said, "I can't believe I stupidly let myself miss 5 years of this, being your wife, in your bed, being your soulmate. I will never forgive myself for not being able to give you children, Robbie." I said, "Honey, if we decide to try again, there are other options when it comes to children. Let's take a shower and get dressed. I have something to show you." It glowed as I drove 20 miles out of town to my place. She looked beautiful as always. She was wearing a blue blouse, black pants, and cute little heels, getting ready to go back to work when we were done. When we were married, I worked as a hedge fund manager for a large investment firm. I was making a lot of money at that time. Melinda spent it on her upscale lifestyle. 2 years after our divorce, I built a beautiful 3-bedroom, 3-bath ranch-style home on 40 acres. I also installed a swimming pool. I have 5 horses and 20 heads of cows. I still work when I want and enjoy working in my area. I also have an apartment in the city. Melinda was enjoying the ride when she asked where we were going. I didn't reveal our destination because I wanted to make it a surprise. I turned into the driveway. She said, "Robbie, whose place is this? It's beautiful." "It's mine," I replied. "After our breakup, I needed to do something. This is exactly what it is. I bought 40 acres and started building a house 3 years ago. I have 5 horses and 20 heads of black Angus cows. When I need to be alone, I come here. I have a hired hand who comes in a couple of times a week and checks everything and takes care of the cattle." Melinda was amazed. She said, "Robbie, I've pictured you as many things, but never as a rancher. I'm delighted and proud. You are truly amazing." I showed her around the house and then around the grounds. She fell in love with my horses and watched the cows graze in the meadow. Soon it was time to return to the city. I told her that maybe we could go back for the weekend. We exchanged passionate kisses, and I drove her back to the office and her car. I didn't pay much attention to the black SUV next to her car, but I should have. I didn't know it at the time, but disaster was looming. Melinda drove to her apartment, smiling, trying to process everything that had suddenly happened in her life over the past few days. As she drove home, her thoughts returned to Robbie. He has forgiven me, or at least is working on forgiving me. We made love. After 5 years, he still turns me on and has done so, over and over again. I know that I still have a lot of work to do on myself and to prove to him that I am worthy of another chance. The ranch was a complete surprise. I think I could get used to this lifestyle. I didn't say anything, but I know he had other women over the years. He didn't ask me to stay the night. Sigh. As Melinda parked in her spot, a black SUV pulled up behind her. When she got out of the car, a man approached her. As he approached, she recognized him. "Jack, you piece of shit. What are you doing? Follow me." Jack said, well, honey, is this the way to talk to an old friend and the father of your child? I thought maybe we could pick up where we left off and I could see my baby." She said, "Go to hell, Jack. You're not the father of any child, you bastard. I lost my baby 2 months after you left. Get out and leave me alone, Jack. I don't want anything to do with you. I have only disgust for you and for myself for those few hours of lust, because there was no love there. There were problems with pregnancy. I can no longer have children because of my stupidity. Now please go away." He said, "It can't be, you lost the child. Well, this makes it easier for us. We can have fun without the fear of you getting pregnant again. Was it your ex-husband that I saw you with before? Are you back together? Does he know what kind of bitch you are?" Melinda said, "Yes, Jack, he knows what I did, and I'm trying to get back into his life. I admitted that I cheated on him with you and said that the condom broke. That's how I got pregnant." Jack started laughing. "You know we didn't use condoms. That little cocktail I slipped into your drink turned you into a sex-obsessed bitch." "Please, Jack," she begged. "You ruined my life one time. Please just go away and leave me alone. Please don't tell him anything about this day. You drugged me, bastard. He will leave me forever as soon as he finds out. I love him, Jack. I told him this so as not to look like a bitch in his eyes. He loved me, Jack, and I broke his heart. Do you have any feelings at all?" "That's so sweet, Melinda. You love him. What about me? I need some love, too. I have feelings. What do I get in return for keeping my mouth shut about the broken condom, honey? I might agree to this after a few evenings in bed with you. Tell you what, meet me for drinks later in the week. Give me your mobile number, and I will call you when and where. I have some things to do today." "Jack, I won't give you my number." "Oh, then I'll call your office or stop by. I would like to meet your colleagues. After your ex-husband kicks you out for good, we could think about something more permanent. It would be useful to know your secretary. You never know when you might need a good lawyer." "Do not dare," she said. Here is my number. Now go away, Jack." Jack left. Melinda walked into her apartment and thought, damn, this bastard. She thought about options. There's no way I'm going to let him touch me again. I know he'll find a way to tell Robbie. He's just that evil. I could kill that bastard, but I don't think the orange jumpsuit suits me. The only real option is to tell Robbie everything and hope for his forgiveness. Then the tears began to flow. At some point, she cried all her tears. It's time to pay the bills and call Robbie. She took her phone. Robbie replied, "Hello, beautiful. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon, but your voice is music to my ears." She was silent, trying to collect her thoughts. He said, "Melinda, are you okay?" "No, Robbie, I'm not fine. Are you busy? We need to talk. Can you meet me at the bar where we met? I felt like this place was my salvation, so it was worth experiencing again." I said, "Okay, honey, whatever it is, we'll get through it. Give me an hour." I was already sitting in the same booth when he came in and sat down opposite me. My red, swollen eyes told him that things were bad. He said, "Joe, 2 shiners. Okay, honey, this is your meeting. What's on your mind that's got you so upset?" "Robbie, first of all, let me say, I loved you from the first moment I saw you. I was a bad person then, but I loved you. I hope you believe that I have changed and that I love you more today than ever. Once I say what I want to say, you may not love me anymore. Robbie, I haven't been completely open about sex with Jack and pregnancy. When I told you the condom broke, It was old Melinda trying to save her ass. I thought maybe I wouldn't look like such a bitch if I said we used condoms. We didn't use it. Jack fucked me twice that day, without a condom both times. What made it worse, he admitted that he drugged me with substances, making me act like a cheap bitch. The day I told him I was pregnant, he told me to get rid of it. When I hit him, he hit me in the stomach and then in the face. He killed the child when he hit me in the stomach, I'm sure. The doctor couldn't say for sure, but he thinks it caused the bleeding. So now you know the truth. I saw tears begin to form in his eyes. He just looked at me. Melinda, why now? Why are you telling me this now? Robbie, after I got home today, I had a visitor, Jack. Did you sleep with him? She said, no, Robbie, no. He said if I don't start meeting him for sex again, he'll tell you what I was like. Then you'll throw me out on the street forever, and we can be full-time sex buddies. He forced me to give him my cell number, otherwise he would have called my office or stopped by. So that's it. Do what you need, Robbie, but I will never stop loving you, but I won't bother you again. I'm sorry I lied to you. In my defense, that was old Melinda trying to save her ass. Melinda began to sob and ran out of the bar, leaving Robbie confused as to what had just happened. She left and immediately dialed Anna's number. She cried so hard that Anna could not understand her. Anna told her to come to her office now. Robbie sat there for another 30 minutes, drinking his beer, thinking about Melinda's confession about sex with Jack. Plus, I still don't know how she ended up in his bed in the first place. I need to know more. Were these really substances? I tried to call her, but she didn't answer. I sat thinking. I'm confused about what to do or how to deal with this new information. I know she was trying to get ahead of Jack. Okay, time to act. First, I need to know everything about that creep Jack. I hired a private investigator, a friend, and told him I wanted all the information, down to the number of times he peed every day, and gave him $5,000. I didn't know at the time, but after Melinda left the bar, she called Anna. Melinda told Anna everything that happened. Her main advice was, it's all in Robbie's hands now. He will either want you back, or it will just increase his pain and anger. Then she called the office and requested 2 weeks off. She booked a 7-day cruise and flew to Fort Lauderdale to board the cruise ship. Her emotions were all over the place. She needed to get away from everything, Robbie, Jack, everything. She boarded the ship and sat on the deck. She felt so alone. A man approached her and started a conversation. He said his name was Martin. That was all she needed for some guy to start flirting with her as soon as she boarded the ship. She told him she didn't want company, but he was persistent and kept showing up wherever she was on the ship. My private investigator told me about Jack Nixon, 40, tax lawyer, all-around ladies' man and troublemaker. Married and divorced 3 times, accused of sexual harassment of clients, allegedly the cause of 3 divorces and 3 unwanted pregnancies. He has been arrested twice for domestic violence and is a suspect in several unsolved assaults. I tried to call Melinda, but she didn't answer. When she still didn't call after 3 days, I called her secretary, Janice. Janice said Melinda asked for 2 weeks off and asked to book a cruise. Janice thought she was on the cruise with me. I received all the information en route. I bought a ticket and flew to Nassau, where I boarded a ship. I looked for her all over the ship because I didn't know her cabin number. After dinner, I checked out all the bars on the ship. I'd rather not do this. I saw her. She was in one of the secluded bars with a man. It wasn't Jack. I watched them talk. She laughed with him while he persistently flirted with her. She is a beautiful woman. What more can I say? I stayed in the shadows, watching my dreams fade. They stood up and walked along the deck, his hand on her waist. As usual, she was dressed impeccably, right down to her red nails and sparkly sandals. They walked to an unlit corner of the deck, and he leaned in to kiss her. She turned her cheek towards him. He said something, and she shook her head. I walked over and stood behind them just as he kissed her on the lips. I said, "Looks like I'm late." He said, "Yeah, man. This ship is full of free women. This one is mine. Back off." I said, Sorry for the intrusion. I looked at Melinda, who had turned pale and was about to faint. She tried to say something, but couldn't. I just left. I went to my cabin with the intention of flying home at the next port. Melinda couldn't believe that Robbie was on the ship and saw another man kissing her, and was heartbroken knowing that he saw it all. She couldn't say a word. No doubt he was thinking the worst. Martin had been trying to get her into bed all week. She had already told him that he didn't stand a chance, but he was persistent. He finds her wherever she is and walks around with his arm around her waist as if they were a couple, buys her drinks, invites her to dance, etc. Melinda pushed Martin away and tried to catch up with Robbie, but he had already disappeared. No one gave her any information about his cabin. She turned on her phone and found many missed calls from him and Jack. She tried to call Robbie, but knew he wouldn't answer. He's hurt again. And again, it's my fault, even if this time it's innocent. I saw that Melinda was trying to call me. I have nothing to say to her now. Previously, if I saw her kissing some guy, my attitude towards her would be, the guy is lucky, but now it really hurts. I decided to take a walk around the ship. It was unlikely that I would run into her among the 3,000 people on the ship. I found the bartender and grabbed a drink, then sat down on a lounge chair in a cozy, secluded area. I was just looking at the ocean when I saw her with her boy toy. She saw me. Damn. She came up to me with the toy boy next to her. I said, "Wow, you don't waste your time, Melinda, but as beautiful as you never did. We are no longer married. You're a free woman, baby. Do whatever you need to do. Don't mind me. I'll leave tomorrow morning." She said, "Robbie, it's not what you think. I just met Martin here at the beginning of the week. He was someone you could talk to. Nothing more." Well, honey, I think your boy Toy will say otherwise. From what I've seen over the past couple of days, he's doing everything he can to get you into bed. Melinda, you don't have to justify yourself to me. Who knows, maybe I'll find someone to talk to, and I'll be lucky that night too. Finally, the toy boy found his courage and decided to claim his rights in front of me. "Hey man, we're leaving. She's my lady of the week, and I'm going to keep having fun with her. You're just an ex-husband, as she told me, so fuck off." I said, "You're right, buddy. I'm just an ex. Have fun." He took Melinda's hand and said, "Come on, Melinda." He tugged at her hand. She was in pain and winced. I stood up, and at 6'4", I towered over him. I said, "Boy toy, you touch her like that again, and you'll have to visit the nurse's office. Is there anything you don't understand about this? Melinda, do you want to go with this gentleman?" "No, Robbie, I'm with you. I've been enjoying our conversations, Martin, but now you can fuck off. Enjoy the rest of your cruise. Goodbye." He started calling her bitch. I said, "Don't say that and save yourself the pain, boy toy." That was the last time we saw him. "Melinda, I'm flying home when we land tomorrow. I needed to talk to you about Jack, but I really don't see the point in you going back to searching again. I'm sure he'll be waiting for you when you return." I turned and left. She followed me and screamed, "Robbie Hammer, stay still. I'll come home with you tomorrow if you don't mind." "Robbie," Jack called about 25 times. I didn't answer. I said, "Do as you please, Melinda. What will you do with your boyfriend when you get back? I found out something about him. He's not a very nice guy." "Robbie, I need your help. He's not my boyfriend. Jack is a goat. Please, you are my only man." I was lonely. Martin was just someone to kill time. I know he had other goals, but they weren't mine. Please don't be mad. What should I think, Melinda? You promised me your undying love and commitment to our future, and then suddenly disappear without a word. I found you on the cruise just after your visit from Jack, who I expected you to be with when I came on board. Instead, when I finally find you, you're in a dark, secluded corner of a bar on a ship with a strange man. I watched for a while and saw you two talking and laughing, walking as a couple with his arm around your waist, and then the kiss was the last straw. So yeah, I'm willing to call it a good try and leave it at that. Please, Robbie, it wasn't like that. You saw how I turned away from the first attempt at a kiss. I'm sorry, I ran away thinking it was over between us after I told you I lied about Jack and the condom. I just needed to leave, and Martin saw a lonely woman when I boarded the ship and tried to take advantage of the situation. I didn't sleep with him or anyone else. Robbie, I want to be in your bed tonight, safe in your arms. Melinda, I'm still angry about what I saw, but I'll give you a chance. This time, let's go to sleep. I'm tired. She slept in my arms, motionless, her beautiful naked body pressed against me. I listened to her breathing. God, how I love this woman. I woke up and we had sex. We informed the crew that we were flying home and left the ship. On the way back, I told Melinda that I had a plan for Jack. When he calls, I want you to meet him at a bar of his choice, where I will be waiting for him. You will record the entire conversation. I want him to admit to assaulting multiple women and possibly threatening you on tape. I know their names from my police contact. We just need more evidence. I'll have my state police investigator friend with me. We will be close. We went straight to my condo when we landed. She had a lot of clothes from the cruise. As soon as we got to the condo, her phone rang. Looks like Jack was persistent. He said, "Where the hell have you been? I told you to be available this week. You haven't answered your phone for almost a week. You don't seem to care much if I tell your ex-husband everything." I told her to tell Jack exactly what I told her when he called. She said, "Sorry, Jack. I had to go away for a few days." "No, please don't tell him." Jack said, "Shut up. Okay, here's the thing, Melinda. Meet me at the Iron Horse Bar on the other side of town at 4 o'clock. We'll have a drink. There's a little motel across the street where we can reconnect, if you know what I mean. No offense. If you want your ex-husband not to find out anything, come and don't be late." She replied, "Fuck you, Jack." He said, "Well, yes, that's the point." He laughed and hung up. She looked sad and upset. I heard everything. I said, "Melinda, since he doesn't know me by sight, I'll come earlier with my friend and find myself a secluded place. Let him say his nasty things. I hope he says something that incriminates him. Police have reports from women he allegedly assaulted. Make him talk about how he beat you and how you are just another victory for him in bed. Ask him if he usually blackmails his partners or just beats them into submission." We arrived early and sat so we could hear but not be seen. Jack came and sat in the booth opposite Melinda. He said, "Hey baby, you're here early, I see. Let's have a drink and then get on with this business." She said, "Jack, you're an asshole, you know. The only reason I'm here is to try to save my relationship with my ex. Just know that I'm not here by choice. You're blackmailing me, threatening to ruin my recovery with my ex-husband if I don't sleep with you. Don't expect fireworks, idiot. So you treat all your bitches like this, Jack? Housewives whom you sweetly persuade to sleep with you so that you can then have leverage, or do you take them by force, knowing that they won't tell because it will ruin their life? You like to sleep with them and then threaten them if they tell, right? Baby, you're just one of many married bitches over the years. I had to convince some of them that sleeping with me was the best option several times. Some refused. It didn't end well for them. Melinda, you shouldn't cross me. I'm not very kind when I'm angry, so just sleep with me and keep your pretty little mouth shut." She said, "Or what? Jack, are you going to kill me after you sleep with me? Let's just say it's not in your interests to run to the police or your lawyer friends and tell them what you know about me. This will end badly for you. I can make you disappear in a moment. You will not be the first to meet your untimely death." "Jack, you're scaring me," he said, "and you're doing the right thing. Now let's see how good she is in bed, as I remember." Robbie sat down with Melinda in the booth and said, "Honey, you can go. We have enough." He said, "Who the hell are you?" Robbie said, "Hi, Jack. I've heard a lot about you. All bad, I'm afraid. I'm the ex-husband, and I know the whole story. You ruined my life, Melinda's life, and our marriage. It's time for you to answer for your sins. By the way, she won't be able to come today or any other day. Now, let me explain something to you. If you get out on bail, and I even think you're looking for Melinda or me, I'll find you and we won't need a cop when this is over. Do you understand? Jack just looked at me angrily. He was so angry that his nose was running. He yelled at Melinda as she walked away, "Remember what I said, bitch. I will not forget." I hit Jack hard in the face with my palm. I said, "Jack, pay attention. Try to keep up. I'm talking with you." He started to get up and I hit him again. "Are you listening now, asshole? I think this cop wants to talk to you." Johnny walked up and identified himself as a state police officer and told Jack that he was under arrest for aggravated assault. Johnny read Jack his rights, handcuffed him, and escorted him to a waiting vehicle for transport to the station. It appears the body of a young woman was found in Mobile Bay some time ago. Jack Nixon is the main suspect in her death. Now everything comes together. They confiscated his SUV and sent it for forensic examination. Melinda was waiting for me in her car when we all got out. I said, "Let's go home, honey. You will stay with me for a while. I'm not sure what this idiot is going to do, but I'll hire someone to keep an eye on him when he gets out of prison. I fully expect him to try to escape." We drove home, showered together, and did our best to drain each other. We fell asleep hugging each other. 4 days passed before Jack's lawyer was able to get him out. Johnny called me and said he had been released. Johnny said, "The forensic team is working through a mountain of evidence in his SUV. They found hair and blood on a dark carpet belonging to a missing mobile mother of two. DNA samples matched personal items from her home." Jack was in deep trouble, but he bailed and fled before evidence could be found and linked to him. I still need to hear how Melinda ended up with this scumbag. I returned to work, and no one had heard from Jack for a month. Robbie told me, as expected, that he did not show up for the trial. His bail was revoked, and he was considered a fugitive. As I was leaving work and walking to my car with some co-workers, a white Ford pickup pulled up next to me. He stopped next to where I was walking. It was Jack. He screamed, "I warned you, bitch." I looked at him and saw that he had a gun in his hands. I saw the gun and turned to run when I heard the first shot and felt something hit me hard in the back. 2 more shots rang out. I was conscious, but barely. I heard someone shout, "Call 911. I had trouble breathing. I couldn't move my hip or left leg. Janice was the first one to get to me. Janice whispered, "Melinda, you'll be okay. Stay with me, darling. Help is on the way." I whispered, "Robbie?" Janice said, "He's on his way, Melinda. Stick with me." I was still half conscious when they loaded me into the ambulance. I had IVs hanging everywhere, and I felt a sharp pain in my left ankle. My phone rang. It was Janice. "Robbie, you need to come to the hospital immediately. Melinda was shot. It doesn't look good. That guy that the police gave us a picture of, Jack, whatever his name, pulled up and shot her as she walked across the parking lot." I said, "Got shoot. Melinda was shot." I rushed to the hospital. I saw police cars and an ambulance outside the emergency room. I ran into the emergency room, asking where she was. I saw nurses and several doctors running back and forth from one of the rooms. The nurse stopped me and said, "Wait here. We are still trying to stabilize her. They're going to take her to surgery now." Janice came up to me. She was still shaking. "Oh my God." She said, "Robbie, it was Nixon. We had pictures of him in the office in case he showed up. It looked like a white Ford pickup truck. He just screamed at her and started shooting in the parking lot. The police are looking for him now." Janice hugged me. I cried like a child and prayed, "Please God, don't let her die." The nurse came over and told us that they were taking her to surgery. It will be several hours before we can see her. Janice and I sat in the waiting room all night. Around 4 a.m. Dr. Harris came in and sat with us. Dr. Harris said, "Everything was on edge. We had to resuscitate her twice on the table. She is currently still in critical but stable condition. She should regain leg function in 3 months. She will be in a splint for a week, then in a cast for 8-10 weeks or so. I expect she will be here for at least 7-10 days. I think she'll be fine, Mr. Hammer. It just takes time. Go home and rest. She will be in intensive care for a couple of days. She is on a ventilator to help her breathe while her lung heals. We won't wake her until we can remove the device. I'll check on her in the morning. Robbie thought, thank God she's alive. I bought a hamburger on the way home, took a shower, grabbed my laptop, and came back. I went to the intensive care unit, found her room, and started crying again as soon as I saw her. She looked so helpless and weak. Tubes, monitors, and IVs are everywhere. I pulled a chair next to her bed, took her lifeless hand, and settled in for the long walk. The car was breathing for her. The nurse came about every half hour and checked everything. She said, "Don't worry, she's a strong woman. Are you Robbie? She called you to the emergency room in rare moments of clarity. Dr. Harris is the best. If he says she'll be fine, she'll be fine." I said, "Thank you, that's very encouraging." Johnny finally arrived at the hospital. He was with the officers who were looking for Nixon. He assured me that they would find him. He said, "Your wife is a brave woman. We already have an arrest warrant for Nixon for attempted murder. We'll find him." He said, "She's a real gem, Robbie. I don't know what happened between you 5 years ago, but you need to fix it. I know it has something to do with Nixon from what I heard at the restaurant, but the main thing is, are you happy with or without her?" Johnny, we were well on our way to reconciliation when Nixon came back to town to try to pick up where they left off 5 years ago. You know the rest. Right now, I just want to be here for her. I hope she hears me when I tell her how much I love her. I only stayed at her side to shower, eat, and answer calls. I had a whole team of private detectives looking for Nixon. 3 of these guys were from my old Ranger platoon. I served in the sandbox twice in 2007. I married Melinda in 2010 and enjoyed almost 5 years of marital bliss before it all came crashing down. On the 4th day, Dr. Harris decided to remove the ventilator and check her breathing. Once it was removed, she began breathing on her own. I silently prayed, "Thank you, God, for taking care of your angel." They stopped the sedatives so she could wake up. An hour later, I heard her moan and her eyes twitched. She squeezed my hand. I said, "Melinda, it's me, Robbie. Can you hear me? Just blink if you hear me, darling." She blinked. The nurse came in, checked her vital signs, and told me she would be fully awake in an hour. She fell asleep again. I went to the toilet, and when I came out, she was awake and looking around. She raised her hand for me to hold. Her voice was dry and hoarse. She whispered, "Where am I, Robbie? What happened to me? What is wrong with me? I feel like I've been hit by a truck. It hurts everywhere." "I know, honey, just relax. Jack shot you in the parking lot at work. You've had surgery, but you'll be fine." She whispered again, "I'm thirsty." Then she added, "Darling, what's wrong with Jack? Has he been caught?" I gave her some ice and said, "No, they're still looking for him. I also hired people who are looking for him. We'll find him. You will have 247 police protection while you are here. I will take you to my home as soon as you are discharged. Robbie, I don't want to be a burden to you. I know you have more important things to do than look after me." I said, "I've already arranged everything. I will have a nurse to help you and my men will watch over my house. They're well equipped to deal with Jack if he's stupid enough to show up there." 10 days after the shooting, Melinda was released from the hospital. I rented a van with a wheelchair lift to transport her to doctor appointments and rehab. The nurse brought her out in her wheelchair, and I activated the lift. When we arrived at my condominium, I brought her to the bedroom. I said, "Okay, young lady, off to bed. You are still very weak. You need to rest." She stood up on crutches and headed towards the bed. Melinda said, "Robbie, give me a hug." I lay down next to her and stroked her face. She said, Sorry, Robbie, I should have been more careful. I said, You're safe, my love. Nothing will happen to you as long as you are with me and I am breathing. Close your beautiful eyes and relax. I'll be here, darling. The next moment, I heard her quietly snoring. I saw my team dispersed throughout my two-story apartment. They looked very inconspicuous, except for me. I took my SIG P320 out of my bedside drawer and made sure it was charged and ready to use. I can assure you that if Nixon shows up here, he will leave here dead. I'm sure he knows she's still alive from the news. His photo was also all over the news. Day by day, Melinda became stronger. Her wounds were healing. Her breathing was almost back to normal. Her hip still hurt, and she was getting used to the crutches. She walked quite well without stepping on her foot. 2 months had passed since the shooting when one day Melinda called me from the bedroom. I walked in and saw her lying on the bed. She was completely naked except for the cast, and the toes of her good foot were pointed at me. She said, Robbie, I want you. I looked at her. She had put on makeup. Her fingernails and toenails had recently been painted red. Even the toes sticking out of the plaster were polished to perfection. Apparently, her nail technician came to the condo while I was away. I locked the door, took off my clothes, and walked up to her. We had sex. 12 weeks have passed, and her cast came off today. She had a noticeable limp, but walked with a walker. She will need several weeks of rehabilitation to regain mobility and flexibility. I took her to the ranch. My guys have already checked it and made it safe. I don't think Nixon knew about it, but who knows? Better to play it safe. We went to my lake and sat on a bench. She was almost herself, but I think she still suffers from PTSD. As she sat on a bench by the lake, I knelt down and kissed the surgical scar on her leg and ankle. I pulled the box out of my pocket and said, Melinda Renee Hammer, do me the honor of being my wife again. In the words of a famous author, let's grow old together, the best is yet to come. I handed her the same 3-carat diamond ring from our first marriage. She said, Oh God, yes, Robbie, yes, yes, yes. I didn't think I'd have the opportunity to be your wife again. But not this ring, honey. We will sell it because it is from a life that no longer exists. We will buy a new ring tomorrow. The next day, we went into town and went to a jewelry store. She chose a simple, thin gold ring that cost less than $2,000 and said it symbolized her new life with me and the new person she had become. God, how I love this woman. 2 weeks later, on a beautiful September day, we stood in front of the judge who granted us a divorce and said yes again. Janice, Doctor, and White, my team, and Melinda's colleagues were in attendance. She was beautiful. Her foot and ankle wouldn't allow her to wear heels, so she wore those cute flats I gave her the first day. Dr. David White came up to us and said, Nice to meet you, Mr. Penenhammer. I was expecting a saint with white wings and a halo, judging by the way your wife talks about you. She's sure you can walk on water. I said, Well, Dr. DeSoers White, you don't have to believe a word of it. She is a little biased and loves me. She tends to exaggerate a little. Melinda came up to us. She said, I owe this day to you, Anne. You pulled me out of a dark place and made this possible. I am with the love of my life and will be with him for the rest of our days. I can't thank you enough. On the way home, my phone rang. I listened for a few minutes and said, Okay, you know what to do. Melinda and I went back to our condo and changed. I told Melinda that I needed to go out for a while. She looked disappointed and said, Right now, on our wedding day, I had big plans for you, big boy, and they don't include clothes. I said, Remember this, beauty, I will be back in 4 or 5 hours. I have something very important to do. I'll tell you everything when I get back. I got in my truck and called my team. They found Nixon in an old apartment complex in a nearby town. They watched him as he went in and out. Now he was in the apartment. It was getting dark, so we decided to knock down the door, detain him, and take him to a place where we could talk more privately. We won't need the police just yet, unless Jack resists and we have to get rid of him. We put on our masks and knocked down the door. Jack was dozing on the old shabby sofa. One of my guys detained him, handcuffed him, and put a dark bag over his head. No one said a word as Jack screamed at us, "Who are you fucking bastards? Let me go, I'll kill you all." Jack said this at the moment when he felt a prick in his arm and the light went out. On the table next to him was a 9mm Glock pistol. I used gloves to pick it up and hide it under the sofa, which was an important part of my plan. I knew it was probably the same gun he used to shoot Melinda, and the police would need to find it. Like a well-oiled machine that has kidnapped many a scoundrel in the sandbox, we put Jack in the van and drove off. We took Jack to a secluded spot on the back side of my ranch where I had an old warehouse. We sat Jack on a chair and waited for him to regain consciousness. When he woke up, he started screaming, "Help!" I finally said, "Jack Nixon, stop yelling. Nobody will hear you. Nice to see you again. You behaved badly. You seriously hurt someone I care about very much. But alas, you didn't finish the job, Jack. Melinda is a strong woman, but you won't get a second chance." Jack said, "Hammer, now I know who you are. You must hand me over to the police. When I come out again, I'll finish the job on your little bitch. It was so much fun getting her pregnant." This statement angered me. I ordered one of my guys to take his pants off, and I used a stun gun below his waist. He screamed like a little girl. I said, "Damn, Jack, you just can't keep your mouth shut, can you? It's not much fun being on the other side, is it, Jack? You can shoot a defenseless woman in a parking lot like a coward, but you can't handle a few volts. What a coward you are." I said, "Jack, we've just started. You have many sins to answer for. All these women you attacked, blackmailed, and beat. Oh yeah, don't forget the mother of two you killed in Mobile. You will have to pay for all the pain and damage caused. The police found a lot of evidence in your SUV. We are your judge and jury, Jack. You will never see the sunrise again. We simply cannot allow people like you to run free." "Are you going to kill me, Hammer?" I said, "I haven't decided yet, Jack. Right now, I just love watching you suffer from the pain you caused these women. And Jack, if you try to tell the police that I threw you this party, I guarantee you that you won't last a week in jail. You understand that if I at least leave you alive, you will still go to prison, right?" We laid Jack on the plastic sheeting on the floor and removed the bag from his head. Then they injected him with propofol. Jack begged and screamed and then lost consciousness. Without much ceremony, I cut off the cripple from the waist down. I kept him alive because I wanted him to have physical memories of our meeting forever. We loaded him into the van and returned him to his squalid apartment. We removed all traces and left. I changed my voice and called the police. I told them I thought I saw this Nixon who was on TV outside the old apartment building. You need to catch that bastard for shooting that poor woman. I described the complex where we left him. By the time they find him, he should still be screaming in pain. I drove home and found my new wife relaxing in the bath with lots of bubbles and a martini. She said, "I've been waiting for you, Mr. Hammer. Please take off your clothes and join me." An offer I couldn't refuse. I started taking off my clothes. She closed her eyes and smiled while I made love to my wife. We kissed and kissed. We couldn't get enough of each other. We've been deprived of that closeness of holding each other for too long. Robbie said, "I love you, Mrs. Rosenhammer," and kissed the thin wedding ring on her slender finger. Melinda said, "Robbie, I can't tell you how nice it is to be Mrs. Rosenhammer again. The Mrs. Hammer I should have been 5 years ago. It's a wonderful feeling to feel like I've been found after being lost in the fog for so long. You will want for nothing, my husband." "Melinda, I already have everything. You." The next morning, my phone rang, and it was Johnny. He said they received a tip on Jack Nixon's whereabouts and found him unconscious in an old, demolished apartment. He is now in the hospital under guard. Johnny said his dignity was damaged. He said, "Robbie, you don't know anything about this. Remember, Robbie, I know your past." I said, "Johnny, shame on you for thinking that I could be so evil. I laughed and said that it looked like the work of bandits. I can't say I'm sorry to hear this. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. Are you saying it was yesterday? It couldn't be me. I was busy marrying the love of my life and fulfilling the responsibilities of marriage. Johnny said, "Okay, Robbie, very funny. You know, I had to check since you have a history with him." I said, "See you, Johnny. Thanks for the help." She said, "I heard what he said, Robbie. I'm so relieved." Life was wonderful again, except for one issue that I knew she wanted to discuss. Melinda snuggled up to me and said, "Robbie, I know you want us to have a baby. It's tearing me apart that I can't give you a child." I said, "Honey, we can adopt. If you want, we can start looking." She hesitated a little and said, "Honey, Janice and I were talking. We are not only colleagues, but also best friends. I would have died when Jack shot me if it weren't for her. We discussed one option. She said that if you agree, she is ready to become a surrogate mother for us, to bear our child." Robbie said, "Surrogate mother? Okay, what does that involve?" Melinda replied, "Well, you should donate when she's ovulating, hoping she'll get pregnant. She will carry and give birth to our child. Janice wants to do this for us. We will cover all expenses." I said, "Okay, it's done in a fertility clinic, in vitro, and so on." Then Melinda looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. She said, "No, honey. Janice and I both want it to be natural. You will have sex with Janice until she gets pregnant. This will only happen during her cycle." Robbie said, "No, Melinda, I could never change you. No, there must be another way." She said, "Darling, it is not cheating if I lie next to you both, loving you. I want our child to be conceived in a loving environment. This is my gift to you. Robbie, I want this for us. It will be a threesome. Our child will be conceived in love. Janice thinks you are the perfect man and wants to find someone like you one day. Janice told me that she would be honored to carry our child in her womb. She will be the godmother of our child. What if me and Janice have sex for a while and nothing happens? At what point do we stop?" Robbie, she recently had her annual checkup with the gynecologist. The doctor said she was as healthy as a horse and fertile. I have no doubt that you will be able to conceive our child. To keep things legal, we will draw up a contract between the three of us, ensuring that Janice will conceive and carry our child, and that we will be listed as the legal parents on the birth certificate. Janice agrees with this too. Melinda, that sounds normal, but let me think about it. I have to understand this. I still feel like I'm cheating on you. When will we start this process? Can I talk to Janice? Honey, this suits me. Janice would be happy to talk to you about this. We can start as soon as we sign the contract and she is in her fertile period. About 10 days passed, and the contract was signed and Janice was in her fertile period, which I would soon learn in practice. Melinda and Janice had been out all day, and I expected them to return at any time. I heard the front door open, and two absolutely stunning, very beautiful women walked in. Melinda would look good even in a burlap sack. Janice has outdone herself. She was cute, not as stunning as Melinda, but still very attractive. Both were dressed in what would normally be business attire. Both were wearing pencil skirts and light blouses without bras. Melinda said, "Well, Mr. Hammer, what do you think of your ladies? Have we passed the test?" I could only stand there dumbfounded as I looked at the two beautiful creatures I was lucky enough to have in my life. One is my wife, and the other, I hope, is the biological mother of our children. I walked up to Melinda, inhaled her scent, and kissed her deeply and passionately. Melinda gathered herself in Janice and I's arms and said, "Robbie, my love, Janice is part of our family now. Kiss her. Take her the way you would take me." I kissed Janice, and our tongues met. Her breathing became rapid as I undid 4 buttons on her blouse, exposing her cleavage. Then I did the same with Melinda's blouse, and we started having sex. We rested a bit and got ready for the second round. Then I held both of these beautiful women in my arms and we all fell asleep. Nothing came of this month. We carried on with our lives as usual until Janice's next cycle arrived. I gave Melinda all the love she could handle, letting her know that she was my soul and life partner forever. As we were getting ready for Janice's next cycle, she came to our house. She said, "Robbie, Melinda, my period is 4 days late." Melinda said, oh my gosh, we need to buy a pregnancy test." All three of us were delighted when the test came back positive. She went to her gynecologist, who confirmed this. We were pregnant and delighted. That night, all three of us slept together without sex. We just enjoyed being together. About 3 months into her pregnancy, Melinda came up to me and said, "Robbie, Janice is horny as a goat. She asked me to ask you if I could help her." Robbie thought about it and said, "My love, we agreed that I would impregnate her and nothing more. Is this really right for you? If yes, then I will buy her all the toys she wants. I want to be only with you." Melinda replied, "I know you love me, Robbie. I'm fine with it if it helps Janice get through her pregnancy." So a couple of times a week, while Janice's belly grew with our baby, I satisfied her sexual needs. Exactly 40 weeks later, Janice gave birth to an 8-pound, blue-eyed boy. We were all in the delivery room when Robert Hammer Jr. was born. We were delighted. Janice was part of our family, and we loved her as such. Janice gave Robbie and Melinda a healthy baby girl. We have become a full-fledged family. As with our youngest, Janice pumped breast milk for our daughter, Janet Renee Hammer. Janice was a true gift who made all our wishes come true. She was our best friend and godmother to our children. One evening, as we sat playing with the children, Janice said, "Guys, I have news. I met someone. We go on dates a lot, and I think I have feelings for him. He says he has feelings for me too." Both Melinda and I rushed to her and hugged her, telling her how happy we were for her and begging her to tell us about him. They met at the doctor's office during her postpartum checkups. He is a nurse practitioner for one of the other doctors. His name is Will McCall. She said, "I told him about our agreement in complete honesty. He thinks it's the most selfless thing he's ever heard of and wants to get to know a woman like me a lot better." Robbie said, "Now, Janice, you don't have to tell him how you became the hottest woman in bed, second only to my dear wife. Plus, you better start taking birth control pills again. You know how fertile you are. Janice, we cannot thank you enough for what you have done for us. He's right about selflessness. You are a great woman." Will and Janice got married and Melinda became her maid of honor. Since her father had died, Robbie walked the bride down the aisle. She was a beautiful bride. Over the next few years, Will and Janice had 2 boys. Janice's traits could be seen in all 4 children. Our children were 6 and 7 years old, respectively. Melinda and I were just sitting on our couch watching our kids play. Her head was on my shoulder, and I was holding her close to me when my phone rang. It was Will. "Robbie," Will sobbed. "Janice died. Janice died, Robbie. What should I do?" I said, "We're on our way, Will. You are not alone." It turned out that Janice was on her way home after leaving the kids with friends for the night when a drunk driver ran a stop sign and hit her from the side. She didn't even understand what happened. Melinda heard the conversation and was already crying herself. She repeated, "No, no, no, this can't be, not Janice." When we arrived at Will's house, his colleagues and friends were already there. We walked in and everyone was crying in a group hug. There was nothing to say. We just held each other. I spoke with an officer who told me Janice died instantly. I also talked to the funeral home and told them that I would take care of all the arrangements and payment. I noticed that Will and Melinda were still hugging, and she was trying to calm him down. I told Will to come home with us. He didn't need to be alone right now. We'll try to talk to the kids later. Little William was only 2 years old, so he wouldn't understand. Josh was 4 and may have realized that Mommy had gone to live with God and that she loved him very much, but he and his brother would live with Dad now. Uncle Robbie and Aunt Melinda will always be there. The funeral was overcrowded. Janice was loved by everyone she touched, just as Melinda and I were touched more than anyone else by the love of this wonderful lady. She gave us two wonderful children. Will was desperate. The children needed him to pull himself together and take care of them. He needed help. His grief was unbearable. About 8 months after Janice died, I came home from a meeting downtown and saw Will's car in our driveway. I knew Melinda was home early today because she had to pick up the kids from school. When I opened the door, I heard conversation upstairs and a lot of movement. I heard Melinda say, "Will, stop it. Please stop it. We can't do this. Please, Will, no. Will, this is harassment. Stop it." I heard Will's voice. "Melinda, you owe me. You let Robbie sleep with Janice. This is true." I walked into the room and saw Melinda naked. She punched him in the head and tried to kick him. She tried to fight back and reason with him, but he was drunk and held her back. I screamed, "Will, get off her." I hit him on the head with both hands and threw him off the bed. I said, "Don't move, Will. I am not responsible for my actions in the next moment." He covered his face with his hands, sobbing, "Sorry, sorry, so sorry." Melinda said, "Will, I don't want to see your face anymore. You understand? What do you think Janice would say about what you did? Yes, Robbie had sex with Janice before you knew her. I cannot have children. She gave us her body so Robbie and I could have children, and you besmirched her memory, you son of a bitch." Robbie said, "Get off your drunk ass and get downstairs. I'm still trying to figure out why I haven't killed you yet." Anne was at our house in half an hour. We told her what happened. She said she should inform the police when she learns about the crime. We asked her not to do this. She talked to Will for a while. Will agreed to start visiting her regularly. Otherwise, she will have to report the harassment. Will left, promising to be at Anne's reception the next day. I was in the other room when I heard Melinda and Anne trying to whisper. Anne asked Melinda, "Have you ever told Robbie about your past life?" Melinda said, "No, he would think I was some kind of horny, crazy woman if he knew about my past life. I tried very hard to forget about that time in my life. That Melinda is dead and buried, Anne. I hope she never comes back. I had to fight her several times. The last time was just a few minutes ago." Anne said, "Well done. Do you think you need to talk to me more to make sure she's out of your life? I think you need to tell Robbie about your life before him. This might help him understand Jack and the others. Robbie never knew what made you end up in Jack's bed, begging him to impregnate you." Melinda said, "Oh my God, Anne, he knows about Jack, but I couldn't tell him there were others. Jack gave me something that day. I stopped seeing other men after Robbie and I got married. He doesn't know about them. I admitted that I lied about the broken condom, but I can't figure out how to tell him that there were others besides Jack. Jack was going to blackmail me and tell Robbie if I didn't sleep with him. I tried so hard to regain his trust and love, only to destroy it again." Anne said, "He might find out on his own someday, and it would be much worse if he ran into one of your old clients who told him about a hot chick named Melinda. Just a warning, Melinda. Don't let it hit you twice. Call me." Anne left, and I was stunned. What I heard was that Melinda had other lovers besides Jack when we were first married. She was a high-earning, affordable girl. What about now? Is she still sleeping with other men? Hell, maybe even Anne doesn't know if she's doing it. Melinda came downstairs, fresh from another shower. I looked at her and didn't know what to say. I went to the closet and took out my suitcase while she was drying her hair. I packed enough clothes for a week with toiletries. She stopped and asked, "Honey, are we going somewhere?" I said, "Not we, but me. Melinda, I need to go away for a while and try to process some things. I don't know when I'll be back. Maybe never. Say goodbye to your children for me. I'll call them." "Robbie, what happened? Did I do something? I hope you don't think I volunteered for this. This couldn't be further from the truth. Tell me, darling, so I can fix it. Please, do not go. Tell me what I need to do." Melinda watched as he simply got into the truck and drove off. She thought, what just happened? Then, no, he couldn't, could he? He couldn't hear us. Oh my God, he heard, I was gone. He knows about my past life too. Oh damn, and about other men. I need to find a lawyer. He will definitely kick me out. I fell to the floor, sobbing for the life I had lost for the second time. Melinda called Anne. Anne, he heard us. He left. Anne replied, "What did he do?" Melinda said, "He must have heard our whole conversation. He packed his things and left. He said that he had heard some very disturbing news and he needed to leave. He left. He said he might never come back. He told me to say goodbye to the children for him and that he would call them. He heard us, I'm sure. I think he thinks I wanted him to impregnate Janice just for the sake of my depravity. This is terrible, Anne." Anne said, "Damn, I told you this would kick your ass. I didn't think it would happen so soon. Crap. I'll help you as much as I can, Melinda. I would be happy to talk to him, with your permission, about your mental state and your actions in those years. But I can't help you with Will's problem if he becomes my patient and I help him deal with his grief. Remember, Melinda, you now have children to take care of. They come first." I know, Anne. I'm lost. I do not know what to do." Anne said, "Melinda, if he lets you, tell him everything. The worst thing that can happen is divorce, but now you have children. It won't be that easy. It's been a month since Robbie left. He calls and talks to the children, who beg him to come home. He tells them he'll be back soon, but he doesn't talk to me at all. I just took care of my children and went to work every day as usual. I tried to tell the children that Dad would be back soon, but I didn't know when exactly. Everyone in the office is wondering what happened to the usually bubbly and happy Melinda. They don't understand that I'm dying inside. I miss him so much. Again, I know it's my fault he left. Robbie has found a motel on the other side of town and sometimes changes places if I'm looking for him. He hasn't talked to me in a month, but he knows he'll have to someday. He's sitting at the same bar where he was sitting all those years ago when I walked in and sat next to him. Melinda said, "Robbie, the kids miss you, and so do I." Robbie asked, "Who am I talking to, Melinda the bitch, the adulteress, or Melinda, my wife? I guess you're still my wife. Have you filed for divorce yet?" Melinda replied, "Robbie, I love you. I'm not going to get a divorce unless that's what you want. If it makes you happy, then I will set you free. If not, we need to talk in private. I have a lot of things I want to tell you, and I want to lay it all out. Then I will leave you with your grief and anger. I want you to know that since you forgave me and accepted me back into your life, I have been completely faithful to you. You gave me the life I always dreamed of. Will attacked me. You know this, so it wasn't cheating. So if you want to talk, you know where to find me. I love you, Robbie Hammer." She got up from the chair and left. As soon as the door closed, Robbie thought, I have to find out. He threw a few bills and ran after her. He caught her just as she was opening the car. Robbie said, "Okay, let's talk. Your old job as a money girl is how you got to know Jack, right?" She sighed. "Yes, Melinda was a spoiled high-class bitch who regularly slept with rich clients. I already told you that I was a bad person back then. But in my defense, I was sick mentally, Robbie. Robbie, I slept with at least 25 men before I met and fell in love with you. Jack was my last client before our wedding. I didn't like him as a sex client then, and I hated him even more for what we did to our marriage later. He saw me one day while I was picking up takeout from a restaurant. I tried to tell him that I had left the business and was happily married, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He threatened to tell you everything about me if I didn't sleep with him. I agreed to meet him so that he wouldn't tell you about all the tricks of the bitch Melinda. I stopped taking birth control pills in hopes of getting pregnant with you. You know the rest. I had to tell you. It was something I couldn't hide for long. My belly was about to grow with another man's child. I knew you would never accept this. So we got divorced and I lost my baby after Jack beat me. Then something inside me woke up. The nurse at the hospital referred me to Anne. It took almost 5 years for me to recover and get rid of that Melinda. As soon as I was well enough, I started trying to get you back, the best thing that ever happened to me. Anne was skeptical, but I didn't give up. I'm sorry you overheard our conversation back then. Anne warned me what would happen if you found out about me from someone else. I won't lie anymore. She's in the past, Robbie. I am yours, forever and one day. I understand if you don't see it that way, but I'm loyal to you. If you leave, I will never have another man in my life. I will raise our children and live alone when they grow up. This is my promise to you. That's all. I gave Anne permission to tell you everything we've been talking about for almost 5 years. I'm sure she has big words to describe my irrational behavior and my twisted thoughts back then, but I've given you the important details. I know that you always wanted to understand what pushed me into another man's bed. I have to go pick up our kids, so I better get going. I love you, Robbie. Robbie said, I have a better idea. Let's take our children together, Angel. Let's go home. She melted in my arms and said, Yes, my love, let's go home. Robbie finally learned the truth about Jack, Melinda, and what destroyed his first marriage. We discovered that we both had a lot to forgive. Melinda finally found a way to forgive Will, even though we were no longer as close to him as before. The children became best friends throughout their lives. Jack had no such luck. The state of Alabama was adamant and took his crimes seriously. He was found guilty of assault and aggravated murder in the death of that young mother in Mobile. He was executed 6 years after all appeals had been exhausted. And I understood why she didn't want to tell me about her sex work.